Hey guys, so it is that time of the month to talk about everything that I watched in the month, and today we're covering June, of course. When you're watching this, it is July 1st. Hopefully the Big Brother cast has been revealed today. I don't know, there's rumors going around. Anyone else watch Big Brother? I'm still excited for the season, even though the past couple a lot of seasons have not been great lately. Although last season was really fun and the live feeds last year were great. Anyway, you don't care about Big Brother. Maybe you do, but we're not here to talk about Big Brother. Anyway, but that's what I'm most anticipating for the rest of the year is Big Brother. So I was not in a movie watching mood this month. I just go through waves where I fixate on a show or something. This month has been Orange is the New Black. I'm going back and rewatching all the seasons. So I just didn't watch a ton of movies, and I basically just prioritized all of the major releases that we got in June, because June was kind of a heavy month for bigger releases, or at least the more like common, well-known ones that weren't just like straight to video on demand. I think we got 3 in theaters and a couple video on demand ones as well, so I'm going to be covering those today. Well, the ones I didn't talk about already. Obviously, I reviewed a bunch this month already, such as the first movie I watched in the month of June, which was, of course, Crimes of the Future. Wasn't a fan of that one, not gonna lie. I'd love to know though, those of you who said it was because I'm not a huge fan of him anyway, what did you think? Because I'm seeing responses from fans saying they did not like it either, even though they are fans of his generally. So I would love to know your thoughts on this movie. I will link my review up here. And then I watched and reviewed Dashcam, which was actually a major surprise for me how much I loved this movie. This one was a very big standout for me for the month and one of my favorite things that I watched. Again, would love to know your thoughts on this one if you've seen it. I will link my review again up here. Okay, so the first major movie that I really want to like talk about and review is one that I actually didn't get a chance to do its own individual review, which I was initially planning. It was on the schedule and everything was good to go until I watched it, and I just kind of didn't feel like doing a review on it. I'm not gonna lie. I just think there wasn't enough to say and there weren't enough horror elements for me to really justify a review, even though I don't constrict myself to genres specific movies. I do review thrillers and other things, but this one was just a little bit too, I don't know. I didn't have enough to say, so I just decided to save it for this video, and that is Watcher. This I had no anticipation for, no expectations going in. I knew nothing about it at all, except it looked like a stalkery movie based on the poster. I don't even think I saw a trailer before going in to see this, or any part of a trailer. Zero marketing. I just saw it on Fandango that it was out in theaters, and I'm like, all right, I'll give that a try. It has Micah Monroe in it, who I like from It Follows, and The Guest, so I thought, you know, this should be something I should see. Another reason why I didn't review it when it came out and when I watched it is because it was literally going on video on demand a week after its theater release. And we've been doing really fast turnaround times these days, but I think this was a limited release or something, because it was very short-lived in the theater and is now available online to rent or buy. So this movie follows Julia, an American actress that moves to Romania with her husband. Julia doesn't know the language, and there's also a serial killer stalking the town. She suspects the man across the street, who she always sees gazing into her windows. So there isn't really anything too special about this movie as far as the overall plot and story. I think the performances are really spectacular. I think Micah carried this movie. I think she was perfectly cast for this role. But otherwise, it's a pretty standard thriller format, and to me, one of the better executed versions of this. And probably this is now my favorite rendition of like a stalkery thriller movie. And I am actually surprised that I enjoyed this one as much as I did, because as you know, supernatural movies are typically my thing, and this has nothing of that, of course. It's a very straightforward stalker movie, and you know, suspense type thriller movie. So I was really surprised that I liked it as much as I did, and I walked out like in awe of it, even though it wasn't anything new. Like the story itself wasn't anything I'd never seen before, and I don't know, the ending wasn't anything, you know, phenomenal. I mean, I think it was, but I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with me. So this one is tricky because it is so well executed, and I don't know if I can credit it, or if I should credit that to the theater experience, because obviously movies tend to be a little bit better when you experience them in the theater, and this one especially was such a great theater watch in my opinion. So maybe it's mostly that makes it so stand out. And if I saw it at home, like, you know, a bunch of other movies, then it wouldn't have been as special. But there was just something about this that was so effective. I was never bored, which I have seen a lot of people say they were. So I think this is going to be, you know, not a love or hate. It's a pretty standard thriller movie. You know kind of what to expect from it. So it's nothing too, like, out there or, like, different where people are going to love or hate it. I just think that some people will want that slower vibe and some people will want more action and more fast-paced. But I think the buildup of the tension in this is why it was so effective and why it works so well for me. I think it is a little bit tropey. Like I said, there's really nothing new going on. It's kind of like your standard stalker thriller movie, with her trying to convince her husband that this man is watching her, and pretty much everyone that, like, you know, she is being stalked, or like trying to convince people this is weird. Also, one of the best decisions in this movie is the fact that it takes place in Bucharest and she does not know the language. So a lot of times she is talking to people from Romania in Romanian. Well, she's not speaking it because she doesn't know it, but she is at like a dinner party and her husband and his friends are talking in Romanian and she does not understand anything that they're talking about, and there's no subtitles for us as the viewer either. So we are kind of with her in not knowing and feeling that isolated feeling of being alone and no one really understanding or not understanding anyone else. So I really like the effect that that gave and made you feel that much more immersed in like her world. But of course it's not a horror. There are very few horror elements, I would say, but very much a suspense thriller that is a little bit more on the slower burn side. So if that's something that you're interested in, give it your full attention, make it as loud as possible. I think the payoff's really worth it for the slower build and suspense. Really immerse yourself in it because that is the best way to experience this movie. So next in the month, I rewatched Joyride for my what was it, road trip horror movie video that I did. I'll link that video up here. And then I was so lucky, well, a lot of people saw it. I'm not like, you know, unique in this, but I am just grateful that I had the time and the energy to go to the theater to see The Thing. I saw The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, in theaters, obviously for the first time because I was not alive when it came out, but that was so exciting. I absolutely loved every single second seeing this in theaters. Now I know some people, it was released on a Sunday and a Wednesday, and those that went to the Sunday release that was planned by Fathom Events, I know had some issues with the ratio and it was basically just a DVR screening, but I think they fixed those issues for Wednesday, but I don't think the one that I went to was a Fathom event. I'm pretty sure. So mine was fine. Mine was in a good ratio, the ratio, and I think it was incredible to see on the big screen. I did have a couple that sat next to us walk out in the middle of it, so I'm not sure if they were interested in it or just had somewhere else to be. I don't know why people do that sometimes. It was pretty funny though because the ticketer, I guess you would say, who was like scanning the tickets, there was a girl in front of us who was going by herself and they had to ask for her ID, and he's like, I don't know what the thing is, I mean, I know it's a horror movie, but like, what is it? He'd never heard of it before. And then she was just like, yeah, it's a horror movie, whatever. And then we get up there and Ryan's like, you've never seen The Thing? Like, you gotta see it, it's so good. And could not care less. Just looked at us like, oh, you know, you win some, you lose some when you give a recommendation. But yeah, we really wanted to hype it up for them so they could go see it, especially because they work at a movie theater. I don't know. Anyway, moving on to the next one I kind of want to get into and review a little bit for you is Solstice, which is a 2008 movie, so definitely my era. So this movie was actually a recommendation on Twitter that I saw from Xena, or Real Queen of Horror here on YouTube, and she described it in a certain way that made it sound really up my alley. And of course, it was the summer solstice recently, so I thought, what a better way to celebrate than with the Solstice movie. So a group of friends celebrating the summer solstice take a trip to Megan's family's vacation home 6 months after her sister's suicide. While they're there, she is haunted by a spirit which she believes to be her sister trying to communicate. So as I was watching this movie, it seemed so predictable. Like, it was very cheesy and I was like, I don't know about this movie. I don't think it's that great until the end. I think once it really started ramping up, I was really shocked by the ending and like was not expecting it at all. But up until that point, it is highly predictable, especially for the era of horror. It's pretty standard, straightforward, supernatural, ghosty girl type horror movie, if you know what I mean. But then it like changes in the end and ends up being really like a good story. So like through most of the movie, you're going to anticipate certain things because it's a very standard run-of-the-mill horror movie in that sense, but I was pleasantly surprised by the end. I think it ends up being a fun and unique horror movie by the end, and is worth it. Like, making it out to be like the lead up is miserable. It's not. If you're a fan of supernatural horror movies from the 2000 to 2010, you're gonna love this movie. It also stars Amanda Seyfried, which is cool. It's cool to see her in this kind of role too. So as I was watching, I was like doing some Googling, you know, I research movies as I watch them if I'm like bored or, you know, it's a slower scene or whatnot. I'm still paying attention, but you know, you go on your phone and you look at the movie that you're watching, you look at the cast, everything like that. And while I was looking at it, I realized that this is actually an American remake of a Danish movie called Midsummer from 2003. And I was like, hey, the title alone, it has me intrigued, obviously. The era, definitely, and I'm watching the plot right now, and it is something that's up my alley, so definitely have to watch Midsummer and added it to my list. Now, I wanted to watch it for this video so I could do a comparison, like just a little quick one in my wrap-up this month, but I didn't get to it. I did not watch it, so hopefully next month I can, you know, report back on the 2003 movie called Midsummer. It does sound a little bit different from Solstice. I think that they changed a character, like the main character in Midsummer is actually a male, but it was interesting how there is a Christian, not like the religion, a person, a guy named Christian in Midsummer from 2003, but also in Solstice, but also in Midsummer, the one that we know and love. So maybe Ari Aster was a little bit inspired by that movie. The plot is nowhere near like, you know, the Midsummer, but the main character is also named Christian, which I think is very interesting. But definitely check out Solstice. I think it's a very unique gem, and I love finding these kind of movies, so thank you to Xena for recommending this on Twitter. I love the random little recommendations like this, and the gems, because they're just fun. They're fun to discover. And like, I had never heard of this in my life. I saw Amanda Seyfried and it was in it, and that kind of sold me on it, plus the era that it came out in. So I gave it 3 out of 5, which I think is a little bit generous for a lot of people. So this isn't a recommendation for everyone, but I personally really enjoyed this one. I found it really fun, and I would definitely rewatch this around summertime. If you want like a summertime kind of movie, a little trip to like a lake house type vibe, this is a great one. And then I watched The Black Phone. Wasn't a fan of that one either. I got a comment on that one calling me a really harsh critic, which is fair. Totally fair. And it actually made me do a little introspection. Like, have I become really harsh or something? But I don't think so. I think I'm still fair in my criticisms of the movies that I watched and review that I don't like. I don't want to hold back necessarily my criticisms just in the name of not being harsh. You know what I mean? Like, if it deserves it, I'm going to say it. I did that with Crimes of the Future and with The Black Phone. They just weren't my movies. And a lot of people disagreed on The Black Phone, I will tell you. That was a surprise. A lot of people called it my worst review ever, which was, again, a surprise. Because sometimes I say things that offend people. Like my opinion offends people all the time. That's not a new phenomenon by any means, but it was even more so with The Black Phone, which was very shocking to me to see. So, but a lot of you agree with me too, so it's very conflicting because some people were acting like I was the only one that didn't like The Black Phone, and I'm like, just read the comments. Like, there's half of them are agreeing with me. So anyway, it was just very interesting, and I really worry now about how I come across, because I don't want to come across as like mean towards movies, even though I did say it goes in the horror graveyard where movies go to die. That was mean. That was harsh. I do give it that, but I rarely say that about movies, and I don't necessarily think it's that bad, but for me personally, it's forgettable. And that's all the horror graveyard means. It's not that it's a terrible movie, it's just that it's forgettable, and I will not remember it, nor will I rewatch it. But anyway, what do you think? Do you think I'm too harsh on movies sometimes? I don't know. I try not to be. I respect the art. I'm not like a critic, you know. I'm not like I review movies, but I'm still a layman, just regular old horror reviewer, clearly, because I don't even watch all the horror movies that come out. Don't watch a lot of horror movies to begin with lately, so, you know. Moving on, let's talk about another one that I'm going to criticize that people are not going to be happy about, because all I've seen is praise for this one, which, totally understandable. I'm going to go easy on it because I totally get it, and that is Mad God. Now, I am not the initial audience, I think, for this one. My partner, Ryan, was so excited for this one, for it to finally come out. He told me about this literally probably like 5 years ago. He showed me like a clip of like a trailer, not even a trailer, but like they released something back in the day for Mad God by Phil Tippett, who is known for his visual effects artistry on Jurassic Park, Star Wars, Starship Troopers, among many, many other movies. And this is a stop motion film. And the reason why everyone's talking about it, in case you didn't know, it was released onto Shudder after 30 years in the making. It took Phil Tippett 30 years. Now that is not 30 years working straight through. He worked with some visual arts students on like weekends, mostly making this movie. So it took him that long because it was a like side project that he would do. But it finally was released to Shudder exclusively, and people were excited. So the plot is described as a corroded diving bell that descends amidst a ruined city as the assassin emerges to explore a labyrinth of bizarre landscapes with depraved creatures. So this is actually Shudder's most streamed premiere that they've had this year in 2022. And it did get a limited theater release in just 24 theaters across the United States. And the reason why this one is a little bit hard to review is because there's so much going on here. Like I said, I don't think I'm the target audience. I love stop motion, like I love Junkhead, if you've ever seen that stop motion. I absolutely love that one, and that's another great example of one that doesn't have dialogue. This one does not have any dialogue. But I was still disappointed with Mad God. Now, we had to watch this in 2 sittings because it is a lot. It's a lot to look at. You can't really be eating while you're watching this. I'm normally not a nauseous, like, I can't eat when I watch horror movies type of person. I'll watch Saw and eat. It doesn't bother me. But this one, it's got a lot more going on than just like blood and guts, you know? It just got really, really repetitive and just a little bit tiring to try to like continuously try to understand what in the world is going on and what the point of anything is. So there's very minimal story, like very little. You could sum it up really, really fast, but it is dragged out over 80 minutes. And I think that is one of the downfalls for this movie, because this would have been like 5 out of 5 for me if they kept the same exact story and they just condensed it to like a 30-minute short. I think that would have been phenomenal with the visuals and everything going on. It didn't need a super big story if it was going to be short. However, it's this very short story that is dragged out, that just is so long, so repetitive, just repeating things that don't need to be that long, scenes that don't need to go on as long as they do. And I feel like the story is just so lacking. Like there is nothing going on. Like there's nothing. You can describe it as an assassin trying to plant a bomb, and then things kind of happen from there, but I could sum it up in one more sentence, but I'm not going to in case you want to watch it. I don't want to spoil anything. I feel like Phil Tippett wanted to make a stop motion movie, which is totally fair. He's brilliant at it. He's a great visual effects artist, but that it's very clear that he is not a writer. He had certain scenes in mind, and then he created like this weak story to kind of fit them all together, because some of them feel very disjointed. Like some of the beginning scenes don't really go with the end scenes, and it just feels like he had different stop motion scenarios that he wanted to play out as an artistry thing, which again, he's very, very talented. Oh my God, this movie is stunning visually. You can see the hard work that goes into this movie, and I appreciate that so much respect. But I had to read the Wikipedia plot summary as we went along because nothing was making sense. I had no idea what was going on. No idea. And the story, even reading it as I'm going along, not making sense. Why? Like, what is the purpose? What is the purpose? I do understand that there's like an overall theme in this, a little bit of commentary, which I appreciate that it's deeper than that. It's not just like this, you know, slow story with beautiful visuals. There's like meaning to it and everything. There is some live action in it, which I really didn't like at all. I thought it was very lazy. They could have made the entire thing stop motion, but I get it. It's a lot of work to do stop motion, so they threw in some live action. It just felt like SpongeBob to me, like, you know, when SpongeBob randomly gets live action sometimes, and it's very off-putting. That's what it reminded me of. Also, the soundtrack was not strong. I expected more from the soundtrack, and it honestly could have been made 10 times better with the better soundtrack. But like I said, stunning visually. This deserves at least 2 stars out of 5. I think that's what I'm gonna give it, which is a little bit, you know, harsh for how much work actually went into this, but you cannot make something just for the sake of making it. I want a good story to go along with it as well. But I could pause at any moment and want to frame that picture in my house, minus a couple scenes. And you might know which ones. But there are some like beautiful images in this, like horror-wise. Obviously not beautiful in the traditional sense, but like horror-wise stunning, like so good. I was obsessed with a lot of creatures in this that are just genius, like genius little monsters that he created, and I love them. But unfortunately, Tippett is of course a visual effects artist and not a writer. And this shows. I think he should have hired a better writer or something to kind of piece it together a little bit better, because you could just tell that the story was kind of pieced together last minute. Like, I don't know if that was his intent or not, but it just needed more. I needed more like explanation and story and things like that. Even without dialogue, you don't need it. Junkhead had a great story. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Mad God. It's just not for me. Visually, it was a lot of things up my alley visually, and the effects and everything were great. Genius. He is a genius. I will give him that. But it just can't be redeemed if there's not a decent story. And I'm sure some people think the story is fantastic and the meaning behind it is very great. Totally fair. I get that. Again, this is my opinion. I'm not gonna, you know, agree with every single person, and you won't agree with me probably. So, but I would love to hear your thoughts on Mad God if you've watched it. It's a unique one. It's a very strange experience. I recommend at least watching a little bit of it, because wow. And I was worried this video would be short because I only have like 5 things to talk about. Here we are at almost 30 minutes of filming. Okay, so the next one we're gonna talk about, this is actually the last movie we're gonna talk about, but I have a sneaky little video game to review later, so stay tuned to that. But the last movie I wanna talk about, kind of, is Abandoned, starring Emma Roberts. This one flew under the radar, I feel. I think it came out this month. No one talked about it. No one's really talking about it. I rented it on YouTube. It's not streaming anywhere as far as I know. So if you want to watch it, you will have to like rent it. So this follows a family with an infant child who moves into a remote farmhouse, leaving city life behind, while the wife is struggling with postpartum psychosis, which only gets worse while in the house. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, I DNF'd this one. I didn't finish it. I'm not gonna pretend that I watched the whole thing for the sake of this video. I stopped it. I watched about half of it, got a vibe. It wasn't for me. Not a fan. The reason why I'm still talking about it, even though I didn't finish it, is because I do that with books. You know, I didn't finish Verity, and I still gave my thoughts on that. So I thought, why not? I'm gonna give my thoughts on the movie of what I saw, why it wasn't for me, why I turned it off, and yeah, just so you can have my opinion. And you asked for it. So, you know that meme about families in horror movies, how there's like 1 million people died and the horror family's like, let's move in. This is that meme. This movie is literally that meme. It plays out exactly like that in the beginning, and I was like, is this a parody? This feels like a Supernatural parody, or like a parody of Supernatural movies, like of these kind of families that move into a remote farmhouse from the city, and it's just been done so many times that I was a little bit taken aback that that's the choice they decided to go. Like, I was like, are they really doing the exact same thing? Like, there's a reason why there's a meme about it. It's a trope. We're still doing it in 2022. Got it. But also, this movie is a lot like postpartum horror, and that's just not my thing. I'm just not into that kind of horror anymore, or, you know, anything regarding children, things like that. So I just wasn't into that in this movie for multiple reasons, but it's just not my thing, you know? It's just, the horror elements weren't great. They were really like jump scary and like cliche, like so cliche, and I watched half of the movie and I just did not get to where it needs to go in halfway. So maybe I'll skim through the rest of it today because I still have the rental for 48 hours, so I have to finish it within the next day, otherwise I'll never see it again, I guess. I'm not paying another $7 to rent it again. Anyway, but I fully support not finishing movies, books, shows, whatever. Don't finish it. Life is short. This is my job. Like, my full-time job is reviewing movies, and I'll still not finish some. You have that right to do that. Life is too short. If you know it's not for you, you know, any part of the way through, you can just turn it off. Anyway, moving on, the last thing I want to talk about is a video game. Now, a lot of you have been reaching out to me on social media regarding The Quarry, which is by Supermassive Games, and they of course made Until Dawn, Man of Medan, Little Hope, House of Ashes, and I have played all of those games except for Until Dawn, but I watched like a playthrough a little bit. I do want to play it still, I think, but anyway, so love those games, love Supermassive Games, and all of them. So naturally I was excited for The Quarry, and it's a little bit Friday the 13th, of course, and has some really cool people in it. So we're playing it. I say we're because I don't really play video games. I'll play this one for the sake of a review. But yeah, I play with my partner because I get very flustered with video games and I'm just not great. I'm not great at them. I need a little bit more practice, if you will. But these are great for people who are not gamers, people who are beginners, because you just aren't really doing much. There's no like conflict or battles or fighting or anything like that. You're just navigating, like a walkthrough type game, making decisions. Anyway, we did buy the game, but we wanted to wait to start it until we finished this game that we recently finished that I thought I would review now, because if I'm gonna review The Quarry one day, might as well talk about another video game that we played recently. So we just finished SOMA, which is from Frictional Games, who also made Amnesia, The Dark Descent, and also Amnesia Machine for Pigs. I think they made a third Amnesia game, I'm not sure. Loved Amnesia so much, The Dark Descent. We played through all of that years and years ago. Like at the beginning of our relationship, we played that together. Anyway, so SOMA came from those creators as well, and oh my gosh, it was so good. Did I play any single second of it? Absolutely not. But I watched the whole thing. Please tell me I'm not alone. In loving video games. I love horror video games so much, but I can never play them. I make him play them all because I love watching them. The Blair Witch video game, Layers of Fear, those are some of my favorites. So SOMA takes place in an underwater research facility containing machinery that seems to exhibit human characteristics. Simon finds himself there under mysterious circumstances and embarks on a mission while trying to make sense of the situation and his potential future. Now, this is a straightforward kind of game. You don't have inventory, you're not battling anything. Like I said, there's no fighting. That still applies to this one as well, even though that's different in the other games from this company. This one is just like you're walking through, you have to avoid enemies mostly, and then there's puzzles. So, but mostly really, really great story. The story in this is so up my alley. It's all underwater. So that is saying a lot. It is very, very deep in the ocean. You're walking on the bottom of the ocean floor for part of this game. It is so gorgeous. It is beautiful. I loved the horror elements in this. Oh my gosh. If you like underwater type horror movies or games or anything like that, you have to play this if you haven't already. I still like Amnesia more, I think, but they're very, very different, so you can't really compare them. And I don't want to reveal like what the horror elements actually are in this because I think the discovery of it is part of the enjoyment of this game. So yeah, look forward to me reviewing more video games in the future as we play them. The Quarry will be the next one that we're playing. However, it does take us quite a bit of time to get through them because we just play pretty much an hour or two at a time. So, you know, be patient, it is coming. I will hopefully get to it this summer though, so I will come back to you with my thoughts on The Quarry then. So yeah, that is everything that I watched in the month of June. Not a lot, like I said. Not a whole lot going on, except Orange is the New Black. And then now Big Brother is going to consume my life starting next week. So we'll see if July gets any better, but it might not. Feel free to leave a request for a movie you'd like me to watch in July and talk about at the end of the month. Leave a comment down below. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.